Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, I want to talk to you about a pretty difficult subject, so I thought I would bring you guys to this very peaceful spot to do it. And today's subject is going to be rejection. And yeah, we have to talk about this because if we want to heal from the effects of narcissistic abuse, parental narcissistic abuse, and if we want to heal from scapegoating, then we have to get down to the root of the problem. And I'm all about doing that, so rejection it is, guys, today. Let me begin by saying that the narcissistic parent in your life will absolutely 1,000,000% deny that they ever rejected their own child. In fact, this narrative will be completely turned around to cater to their victimhood. They will turn the story around through that manipulative inconsistency that they always do, in which they view themselves and present themselves as the victim, the wonderful empathic parent who cares so much about, who love their children equally, and who cares so much about, their child. And yet, behind closed doors, you will see a completely different story unfold, a story that you and I know very well. I want to get down to the technical aspects of rejection with you, because I want you to know that what happened to you was in fact rejection, as much as a narcissistic parent wants to deny the fact of what they did. What they did to you was rejection, and what your narcissistic family system did to you was also rejection. And this really affected us on so many deep levels as we grew up. First things is the labeling. Yes. The narcissistic parent labeled us from the very beginning as the bad one, the burden, the pebble in their shoe, the bad character, the problem child, Satan. My mother used to always say that about me, Satan. I was Satan to her. The unruly one, the problem, the damaged goods. And this label that they had put on our head really was how they conditioned the whole family system to view us from the very beginning. In my family, it was like that. As soon as there was any sort of fight with her, as soon as she instigated something, everybody always turned to me and said it was my character. The problem was, it's normal that she behaves like that because your character. That was something that I experienced, And so they begin this rejection process by putting negative labels on your forehead, and then you have to live your life. That sort of determines your position in your family system for the rest of your life. And because of this label that they put on you, well, you're at the bottom of the food chain. You're at the bottom of the family's pecking order. Something happens to you, it's because of the label that you have on your head. It's because there's something wrong with you, or so said the narcissistic parent. Then the second thing is, of course, the badmouthing. I don't think any of us has ever been immune from badmouthing from our narcissistic parent, I remember myself, every time she would invent fights, she would immediately call family in Europe, because all of my extended family, they all live in Europe, actually. And she would immediately call them, and I would hear her bad-mouthing me from my room. I'll tell you a story about how this is done, the labeling and then the bad-mouthing that follows, I remember one time I was young girl, 14, 15 or something, I don't know, I can't tell you, but I was in the TV room, and I was watching the movie, I think it's called Ever After. It was like Cinderella with Drew Barrymore. It was a movie from the 90s. You couldn't have a more like appropriate movie for a young girl to watch like on a Saturday morning as she's having her cereal. You know what I mean? You couldn't have, seriously, Cinderella. And there was a scene in that movie where, you know, one of the princess was crying because she was forced to marry a man, the prince that she didn't love, and so she was walking up the church, that scene, to for the marriage, and she was crying the whole time, and the crying was really quite exaggerated, right? It was like a comedic sort of crying, like bah, ha, 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 you know, it was that kind of thing, it was that kind of scene, you know. My mother walked into the TV room. She walked in, and she had her back to the TV. In fact, she refused to look at the TV during this entire conversation. And she accused me of watching porn. Yes, she did. This is a true story because of the sound, the princess crying, I guess. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Just turn around. It's Cinderella. I'm watching Cinderella. Turn around. Look. I'm not gonna look at your disgusting pornography that you watch like this, you disgusting prostitute, you know? She completely got into a huge fictional fight with me. It was ridiculous. I was watching Cinderella. Like, it was she got into a huge fictional fight with me over me watching porn as a 14-year-old Saturday morning with my cereal in the TV room, you know? But then what she did after the fight, which of course left me crying and exasperated because I was like, what is this, you know? Then she called family abroad in Europe right after the fight. And she was like almost crying on the phone. My daughter is prostituting herself. You know, she's watching pornography on TV. What did I do to deserve this? What did I do to deserve this? How do you fight against this when you're a scapegoat? You can't, you know. They will put a label of you on your head, and then they will invite other family members to jump on that train by really playing the victim, by inventing stories about their own child, by creating a fiction version of who you are in which other people actually believe. Even the enablers that live in that household will sort of automatically start believing these things about you, you know. Then there's so of course that's full-on rejection, the bad-mouthing of their child to family members. It's basically training other people to start rejecting you, as the enablers in the family system do as well. Then you have the golden child dynamics, right? So you have, you know, as you very well know, in a narcissistic family system, you know, the children are given sort of roles. And, you know, one child is the narcissist's favorite, right? They're the ones who embody the perfection. They embody, you know, everything that the narcissists, you know, sort of their idealized version of themselves, you know. So that child will be pushed towards success. That child will be, you know, they will pay attention to their school. They will pay attention to their education. They will pay attention to, but of course, I'm not, I want to say that the role of the golden child is just as horrible because, you know, the narcissistic parent manipulates them on such a deep level, and because they are not necessarily the target of all the garbage, like the same way the scapegoat is. The scapegoat can wake up to what's going on, but when you're manipulated, you know, they're like parasites, and they will go inside the head of the scapegoated child and really twist that neck any way they want that golden child to look, you know, through conditional love and such. It's not a good role to have. But, you know, those dynamics, the golden child is the favorite sibling who is manipulated to side with a narcissistic parent against the scapegoat, right? They become conditioned to side with the parent. The parent will constantly, always beginning with the labeling, right? They will label us a certain way. They will invent fictional fights around those labels. And then, you know, they will involve other family members in the ganging up and the rejection of the scapegoat, you know. And of course, this will lead to a rivalry between siblings, which actually I was never a rival with my sibling. I always really loved him. But in the end of the day, when I went no contact, he abandoned me. He rejected me just the same way as everybody else did. Because poor narcissist is the victim in this whole thing, right? Then there's the cruel punishments, right? The narcissist will have silent treat. You know, the narcissistic parents will impose punishments that are designed to hurt, not that are designed to teach valuable lessons, not that are designed to teach a child, okay, this is what you can do, what not to do. No. The narcissistic parents' punishments are designed to be cruel and to hurt and to deeply hurt a child. A silent treatment like what I had with my mother after the physical abuse, you know, of course, it was, it's basically a way for that parent to say to that child, you don't exist. You don't exist to me. You are so unworthy of my love that you do not exist. And my mother would do this to me all the time, teaching me, teaching all of us that we are not worthy of love from our own parents, and therefore rejecting us, instilling a deep, deep, deep wound of a trigger around rejection, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then, of course, another way that we are rejected by the narcissistic parent is through the invalidation of our emotions, Our emotions are tantrums. They are tantrums for attention that we do not deserve to get. Our emotions are not valid. Our emotions are abnormal. We are abnormal for feeling how we feel. And so again, this teaches us we are rejected for the way that we feel as human beings naturally, just the way that we feel. And we are rejected for our internal world. Our normal human internal world is a reason for the narcissistic parent to reject us. And of course, I want to add one more important thing. It's the competition factor. I don't know, if you're, especially I think, if you're a woman and you have a narcissistic mother, I'd be curious to know if a narcissistic father ever did that with you. But a narcissistic mother will be in competition with her own daughter. Of course, nothing that the daughter, there's jealousy, the competition is on such a deep level that it doesn't matter what that daughter does. The narcissistic mother has to take that away from her and put herself above the daughter, taking away, that daughter's inner power and squishing it beneath her feet, because the mother has to have that authority, that that I'm above you sort of position as parent all the time. So now we gotta ask ourselves a question, a very important question. And why did they do this to us? Why did our narcissistic parent reject us in all the ways that they did? Why did they do this? Because again, rejection is not going to be necessarily, although that could happen, of course, but it won't be necessarily something that happens openly, that they will kick you out of the house and you can't go back in. Of course, I know that could happen, but all I'm saying is that sometimes this rejection is covertly done, and nobody knows that it's happening except for the scapegoat. And so why does this happen? Why? Well, the most important thing that I can tell you right now is that actually this thing that happened to you has absolutely nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with their dysfunction. It's not yours to carry. And I understand that, unlearning the internalizing of the rejection is really, really challenging for us scapegoats, considering how we were raised and who raised us, But you gotta remember, this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with, first of all, their own projections, okay? Narcissistic people cannot acknowledge their flaws. They can't acknowledge their shortcomings. They can't acknowledge the real issues in their life. They can't acknowledge that something is actually wrong, that they actually have issues just like every other human being on earth that has a light and a shadow side. You know, we're a whole, right? They can't acknowledge this about themselves. So instead, what they do is they will project their insecurities and their negative traits onto others. And what better target, what more convenient target will you find than a scapegoat who becomes the source, you know, of all the family problems, you know? And doing this allows the parent to never take responsibility for themselves. The second reason why they do this is because they are stubborn on maintaining the illusion of themselves, right? The illusion of themselves. They will create this image of perfection and superiority, you know, and when they label the scapegoat as the problem, they can maintain that illusion of perfection while deflecting anything that they do wrong, anything that's wrong, onto that target. Then after that, there's that need that they have for control. You know, they have a need for control, for dominance. And when they reject the scapegoat, they basically reinforce control over what's going on in the family dynamics, you know. They don't want anybody to side with the scapegoat. That will weaken them. So they ensure that the scapegoat is alone. Then, after that, satisfying their ego. Yes. They need admiration, they need validation, you know, and so when they reject the scapegoat, when they do what they do, this allows them to make themselves feel better. It boosts their ego. It feeds their ego. They need to take other people's power away from them to make themselves feel better. Okay? It boosts their ego to do this. And this, of course, leads me, next reason why they do this is because they need supply. You know, they need supply. The narcissists seek admiration and validation, and when they reject the scapegoat, it allows them, you know, they need to step on other people to boost themselves up, to boost their own egos. That's how they function. There's no equality. They feel so bad about themselves that they feel that they need to squish another person to maintain their power, their superiority over another person. This satisfies their egos. And then, of course, when they divide and conquer, they have the need to divide and conquer for the same reasons. You know, when they create division within the family, it distracts from their own dysfunctional behavior, you know. And of course, because they feel so empty inside, they do this out of jealousy and out of a sense of competition with their own scapegoated child. You know, there's no way that the scapegoated child could ever surpass the greatness of the narcissist. There's just no way. It doesn't matter. Like, they will keep you dumb. They will tell you that you're dumb, but you're not. You know, it's all part of the projection. They feel so terrible about themselves that they feel threatened, you know, by the smallest, as soon as the scapegoated child does something that threatens their greatness, you know. It's not possible. They need to suppress your qualities to maintain their qualities above you. And of course, they do this because they're emotionally dysregulated people. You know this. You and I both know this, you know. They can't attune themselves. They have no empathy. They can't have empathy, although they will tell you that they are the most empathetic, wonderful people that you'll ever meet. And you might see them have empathy for other people, or like, you know, you will see them show empathy maybe when they watch the news or when their friends come over and you know, whatever. But really, when nobody's there and it's just you and them, you see the lack of empathy. You know, they will not reciprocate empathy towards you. They're completely dysregulated. You know, they will not attune with your inner world. You have to attune with their inner world all the time. They cannot be attuned with you. And so, you know, they will not admit to their emotional dysregulation. They will not admit that they have, you know, issues. They cannot, you know, they refuse to do that. And so, of course, the other thing is that they will also distract from the real issues. The focus remains on the scapegoat. So the emotional dysregulation remains hidden as long as there's a target that they can blame for their own dysregulations. As long as there's a target to blame, they can hide who they are. As long as there's a target to blame, they can hide who they are. So how they treated you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with how dysregulated and sick they are inside. Okay? But that does not belong to you. And a lot of beliefs that we have now were beliefs that were taught to us by a very dysregulated and sick individual. So we gotta stop believing in that stuff. You gotta stop believing in that stuff. Rejection is actually a very deeply and physical and painful experience. You experience abandonment and exclusion from your own family just because a narcissist refuses to hold themselves accountable for themselves, for their lives, for their issues, just because they are so afraid of themselves. Just because they hate themselves on such a deep level, they project that self-hatred onto you, And because of this, and because of the manipulation, because of the way that they will talk about you and invent fights, and when people come home, they will claim victimhood. The mess that they create, you end up being rejected by your family because they take all the space. They take all the space with their dysregulation. They take all the space. And so here's what I want you to do now, okay? First of all, I want you to reclaim your authenticity. Your authenticity was wrongly labeled as oppositional behavior by your narcissistic parent, yeah? You were labeled as oppositional, as if everything you do is against that parent. But that actually is wrong. And you have to reclaim your authenticity. Okay, give yourself permission to exist as your authentic self. And a good trick to do this actually is to get to know your values, because in fact, I'll put a link to an article I have about this, in the description, because, when you get to know your values, it makes it easier for you to make decisions that align with your authentic self, with who you are. So, get to know what your values are, get to know what's important to you. And when you make decisions in your life, make sure that those decisions align with your values. That's a good start to sort of get to know where you stand with your own authenticity. The second thing I'm going to tell you is you have to identify and address your triggers. This is so important because your triggers around rejection will probably sabotage good relationships if you're not careful. Do take a look at my videos about triggers if you haven't yet. It's really important to understand what a trigger is, because triggers will self-sabotage very good things. A trigger will keep you stuck repeating the same negative and the loops of your past. You know what I mean? The same situations will happen over and over and again, because a trigger is you reliving the situation of your past. And so if you're scapegoated and you've been rejected by your parent, you can become super triggered as soon as somebody doesn't answer a text or a call. You can get super triggered when you receive constructive criticism from a partner or something like that. You may really take that as a rejection, but actually it's not. It's just a constructive sort of conversation someone's trying to have with you. Or you can also become super triggered if somebody wants to discuss relationship issues they might be having with you, and immediately take that as, you don't love me, as a rejection, right? These are triggers that can actually happen because of how our narcissistic parent treated us at home. We were conditioned from childhood to believe that we are worthless, that we are not worthy of love, that we are nothings. So as soon as you're faced with a situation in the present that reminds you the slightest way of that feeling, you might react really strongly. And so become mindful of your triggers. Triggers is when you really you start feeling, it's physical, right? So you will feel like a rush in your body. when you practice mindfulness and you feel those rushes, kind of always pause and before you react, pause and don't do anything until that feeling passes, because you need to sort of inquire within to make sure that what you're feeling is not rooted in the past, in that rejection that your parent created within you, that core wound. And then I will tell you, it's so important for you to work on boosting that self-esteem. And the reason why I tell you that, it's because, rejection really strongly affects people with low self-esteem the most. So when you constantly feel rejected, that could be a sign that you have really low self-esteem, of course, which again is perfectly normal. If you came out of a narcissistic family system, of course, you're going to be dealing with low self-esteem. And a huge part of the work is going to have to be around boosting your self-esteem. So important that you do that. And so your self-esteem, it grows with every empowering decision that you make for yourself. So when you find yourself at a crossroads, you got to make a decision, even if it's just as simple as, what am I going to eat? Am I going to grab a bag of chips, or am I going to grab something healthy? Am I going to stay in bed, or am I going to get up and go for a run? Am I going to get up and take care of myself? Am I going to brush my teeth, or am I going to go to sleep without taking care of my face or my teeth? Am I going to enroll in that program, or am I just going to continue, wishing I could enroll in that program, right? So your self-esteem will get better as you make decisions that empower you. It's really important that you do that, okay? And then, of course, lastly, you have to work on that self-compassion. Every time that you feel the guilt, that you think of the enablers that are either still abused by the narcissist and choose to stay with them anyways, or that did not see the manipulation and they got completely, brainwashed by the narcissist and their stories of victimhood. Of course, I experienced that too. When I think about my family system, I always think about my relationship with the enablers in my life, And I thought to myself, you know what? How is this possible? I got along with my dad. I got along with the golden child. I did. We never got into it like crazy fights. It wasn't like it was pretty stable. And yet, as soon as a narcissist showed up, this conditioned response within them would just click, And oh yeah, it's your bad character. Where did you ever ask yourself where that comes from? Where does that come from? This idea, this label that you still believe I carry on my forehead. Am I really that bad to the point that I don't deserve to have a mother? That I don't deserve parental love? That I don't deserve parental support? That I deserve to be called names, badmouthed, all those things, right? Really? That's really, you think you're conditioned to believe that those things, it's normal to do things like this to a family member? So you gotta think you deserve self-compassion. After going through this, you know what? The person that matters the most right now is you. You gotta give yourself that self-compassion that your family did not give you, okay? And this starts with self-kindness. I challenge you to do something kind for yourself today and every day. Every day, do one thing, that is supportive towards yourself. Be supportive towards yourself. Do that one thing, okay? Acknowledge your own humanity. Acknowledge your own humanity. You are not just bad or unworthy. It's not because you have flaws that you're not worthy of love. We're all human. We all have a light and a dark side to us, okay? All of us are made of we're complex creatures. We're not just robots, That doesn't exist. It's not possible. It's not possible to not have any flaws or, not having made bad decisions in your life. Acknowledge your humanity. You're allowed to make mistakes. We all have flaws. You're not alone. They isolated you. They wanted you to believe that you're alone, because your flaws are so terrible that you deserve to be alone. No. Acknowledge your humanity. You're a human being like me, okay? And so recognize that you're not alone in your experiences. You know, you deserve self-compassion. You deserve love. You deserve to give yourself that love. You really, really do. Forget about them if you can. Like try and walk away from all that guilt if you can, because you deserve self-compassion first now. You do. You deserve self-compassion now. And so, really important that you practice mindfulness. Be mindful of your thoughts and your feelings. Don't hate yourself for feeling what you feel. In fact, allow yourself to feel what you feel. I got a couple of videos around like anger and like emotions and stuff. I will make more, you know. Allow yourself to feel what you're supposed to feel. Don't fight it. Just acknowledge your emotions without judging and maintain a balanced perspective. You know, you feel how you feel. Allow your emotions to go through you. Accept yourself as you are and, you know, focus on your strengths and move forward. So I hope that this video helped you, and always remember, repeat, I love myself, I trust myself, and I am worthy of success. How about that? I am worthy of success. I love myself, I trust myself, I am worthy of success. I belong here. I belong here. And you belong here. Okay? So let's continue giving each other strength, guys. I hope this helped you, and take good care of yourself.